magician traveling the world for gold. Somebody's made of plastic and some other things I love. Won't you come along with me? There's no time for rejection. Hold on tight, such a delight. It's Brian's Wrestling Collection.
Me. What's up, Glen Burnie, Maryland? Welcome to Brian's Wrestling Collection Live. Thank you, Mr. Jason Knupp. The 100th episode on YouTube. I'm so excited to be here today with all of you. And to be completely honest, we do have a star-studded card of interviews. We are talking about Gilberg from the WWF, the longest reigning light heavyweight champion. We're talking about Playboy Bob Starr from WCW. We're talking about my old man, the bad boy Barry Hardy. And there is...
Everybody's sister's favorite selection. Your mom wants me to be president. No need for an election. She kicked your dad out of bed last night. She made the right correction. And she and I fell asleep after listening to Brian's Wrestling Collection.
Everybody give it up for Joe Gertner from ECW. Oh my gosh, man, have a seat. I am excited to have you as the first guest on Brian's Wrestling Collection tonight.
I'd like to, if I could, for a moment before we go any further, the point that you just expounded upon about me being the greatest or whatever. I'd just like to say, I agree with Brian in that.
Well, that's true, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I appreciate it, thank you.
I love that introduction. The introductions that you have done for years and years and years are, I would say, people would say they're historic, they're classic. And I brought you here today on Brian's Wrestling Collection to talk with you about your awesome time in the business. So, where did you make the drive from today?
Brooklyn, New York.
Oh yeah, Brooklyn. Anybody from Brooklyn in the house? All right, there we go, boom. All right, guys. So we're gonna get started right away. Joe Gertner, when this video game pops up, ECW Hardcore Revolution, can you talk to me about your part in this game? And I know there was one other game released for PlayStation as well at the time. I think it was a couple other systems. Let's talk about your part in this game.
Yeah, there were supposed to be 3 with Acclaim. I think the third one wound up not being us, right? Everything timed out. So it was after ECW had elapsed. So the third one wound up, I think, being, I want to say, a Legends game. The 2 games that we did with them, I think Hardcore Revolution maybe, and maybe Anarchy Rules. I think, if I remember correctly, I was more involved with one than the other. I think maybe more involved in the second one.
Anarchy
Because
Rules.
maybe that was once I got to TNN or whatever. So I think it was the second one where I was on Long Island at Acclaim's headquarters doing VOs and stuff, and I think they also made me a downloadable character that had like a set move and a finisher. And
So that's what I was gonna say. So in this game, yeah, I was gonna say. So in this game, you literally are, when you create a superstar, you can be Joel Gertner's move list and stuff. And I'm like, what exactly? And I'm putting you on the spot now. What exactly is Joel Gertner's moveset?
I'm trying to remember. There was the Stud Muffin Especial, and there was the one of them was a shooting star press, obviously, and the other one was, I think they were both like actual big time like Japanese style. I don't think there was any kind of comedy, like one of them was a Kamala belly flop or something like that. It probably should have been looking back, but I think they were both, gosh, I can't remember. One of them for sure was a shooting star press.
Well, today in the convention after the show, we actually have a video game where you could play as Joel Gertner. You could play as all the stars today from Brian's Wrestling Collection, and we actually gave you the Rikishi driver. So nice. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, when it comes to movesets, man, I was 9 years old when this game came out, and like I said, it's funny to see that at that same time we were, we'll get into that a little bit later, but TNN was a big deal for ECW at the time that this video game came out.
Well, how about the Wrestling Circle of Life, though? How about the family? Like, I was about 9 years old when I saw your dad on TV for the first time, and then you were about 9 years old when that game came out, and then there's your son, who I met, around that stage of his life.
You took the first selfie with him. His first ever selfie.
I had trouble believing. I thought that was just something you were telling me.
No.
And come to find out, you've reinforced that. You said, yeah, no, actually, yeah.
It's so true. His first selfie, Owen Hardy's first selfie, was with Joel Gertner in Philadelphia, which is awesome, and he still talks about that till this day. So we're not going to go into TNN just yet. We're going to go into the beginning of your career. How did you get started in pro wrestling?
I started watching I tried to trace it back, right, because as I was watching, I was trying to go into the past with Coliseum Video and keep present, and, just the timeline is so discombobulated to try to pin down when exactly I started watching. I always go back and forth. I think it was the summertime, because a summer camp friend turned me onto it. The summer of '83, summer of '84, I think. But I was about 8, 9, somewhere around there, and just kept getting more and more into it, more and more involved. My bar mitzvah when I was 13, and we were planning for it when I was 12, was wrestling themed.
Who was the guy that made you say, like, I want to be in this business? Like, the person that specifically made you go, this is it, this is what I'm gonna do the rest of my life?
There were a few. So I loved ring announcing, so I loved Howard Finkel. So I loved the managers of the time, so I loved Bobby Heenan, Captain Lou Albano, Jimmy Hart. As I kept watching, Paulie and Jim Cornette.
It's okay to make some noise. Everybody give it up for everybody he just mentioned. Bobby the Brain Heenan, Jim Cornette. Legends. There we go. It's okay.
And then what else kept me watching? I loved Piper's Pit, because it was everything that you couldn't see anywhere else on television. It was just so out of the box, like avant-garde, just like kind of high stakes, just like.
Would you say that the segment with Snuka and the coconut was, a lot of people always say that segment was something that made them go, yep, this is a part of it.
I liked all of the classic ones, that one, Frankie Williams, a lot of them. Yeah, just some of the commentary was just so, again, you wouldn't hear it anywhere else on TV. Everything was just so intense. But I love guys like Piper, Ventura. And then on the wrestling end of things, I knew I'd never be a wrestler. I knew I'd never be an in-ring competitor, and the athletics of it all wasn't where my bread was buttered. But I liked heels, and my favorite was Jake the Snake Roberts. I liked his psychology and his kind of just methodology and delivery and stuff like that.
What, as far as, so, you've named a few people that were really influential. When did the call happen, and when was the decision made that you were going to be in ECW? And a lot of people here in this building know that the very first time that you were, to my knowledge, were on ECW was with the Dudley Boys, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I had done some stuff. Everything that I was given, I tried to treat every treat like a meal and treat every meal like a banquet, and I tried to make the most out of everything at ECW. I started 3 days after my 20th birthday, so if I would have started the previous weekend, I would have started as a teenager, and about that, but
absolutely.
I just tried to make the most out of everything. So I started as a backup ring announcer and timekeeper. And then at my first show, the ring announcer, lo and behold, like 5 or 6 matches in, right after intermission. Got taken out, I think, with a 911 chokeslam or something of that ilk. And I got to do the last 2 matches. And that was, again, 3 days after my 20th birthday on a night where Stone Cold, superstar Steve Austin made his live debut for the company, and Bubba Ray Dudley, foreshadowing, would start his journey as, at the time, Fonzie's bodyguard, Mongo. So, yeah, and from there I did I became kind of a primary ring announcer, filling in for Bob Ortiz, who took a sabbatical. I did foreign language ring announcing in Spanish and Japanese. Became a heel ring announcer, became kind of a mouthpiece that was kind of doing promos for people, not necessarily their official manager, but I did that kind of bounced around FBI, Shane Douglas, maybe Taz, and then eventually more regularly with Axel Rotten, a legend from this area.
Everybody give it up for Axel, R.I.P. Axel was actually inducted into the Maryland Wrestling Hall of Fame in this building back in 2015, so.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yep.
In this building, didn't know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Axel and Devon. And then eventually, as the Dudleys started shifting, and somewhat babyface, but pretty much the whole family, aside from the odd babyface, went heel. I became their heel mouthpiece and went on a ride with them for about 3 years or so. And as far as when did I get the call, I was just kind of going to shows and seeing if there was anything, for me there. It was, obviously the top independent in my area, and I just thought that I'd be a good fit. I was in school at the time, and it was coming up in the end of summer. It was like late August-ish, leading into a September '95 ECW arena show. And I was there in Philly, and I'm a couple hours away from home, and everybody's hanging out in the hotel bar with friends, and the show's about to come on TV at like 1 o'clock or whatever, and we're all gonna watch it. And I saw Paul walk into the hotel, and he was going up to his room, and I was like, when he goes up to his room, he might not come down, and I won't have a chance to ask him anything or introduce myself. So, the answer is no right now. So the only thing that, no's either gonna say no or no's gonna change to a yes. So I literally gave him an elevator pitch, which is a thing now, and maybe always has been.
Oh, yeah.
But when I was 19 years old, I didn't know what an elevator pitch was. And I just kind of, without tapping him on the shoulder or being rude, I kind of, tapped him on the shoulder and kind of made my presence known and introduced myself and told him what my credentials were for even bothering to think that I had a chance, to perhaps help his product out in any way, and let him know that we had some mutual friends so that he knew that, kind of I could be trusted, and it was more of an inside game back then, numbers game, and the numbers were smaller, and I just said, so you're running a show in Middletown. I said, I don't know, what I'm a ring announcer by trade, I've refereed, but I'm a ring announcer, and I don't know if your ring announcing crew and your timekeeper, I don't know if they're coming from Philly, or if you're gonna wind up in a lurch, like having to look around and find somebody. But, to avoid that, gosh, I'd love to, shoot that from school, and if they're not coming, I kind of love to, treat it as an audition and just, you can see if there's anything that I could do for you guys. And he looked at me, he was like, you want it? I was like, yeah. He's like, you got it, be there by 5. And I'm gonna be there by 5 turned into like 5 1/4 years of the best years of my life.
That is so awesome. The thing that I think of, a couple of different memories come to mind, but would you say that your first time really, like you're branching in from managing the Dudleys into your quintessential stud muffin character, would you say that stemmed with Jenna Jameson?
Yeah, I think I got a lot of clout working. I think so. I think the quintessential stud muffin evolved because I think the fans, everything I did was for them. Everything I did was, all right, is this gonna pop the fans? But alongside that, like, I don't even know what order I would prioritize these in, because I was always just kind of scattershot thinking of all of them at the same time. Is this gonna pop the fans? Is this gonna pop the boys? Is this gonna pop me? Because if it's not gonna pop me, and it's not gonna pop the boys, and it's not gonna pop the fans, then who, what am I doing? So I would try to accomplish all those at the same time. And I think, working with Jenna probably was a stamp of approval. But I think the biggest stamp of approval comes from The Office giving you time, because time is, I say The Office because the creative, like we didn't have makeup, we didn't have pyro, we didn't have, we had a sound guy.
Is it true that Paul used to write the cards on napkins before the show?
If there were napkins,
wow.
If not, probably the back of his hand. Probably just, yeah. I mean, oh yeah. It was the most, out front, we were very revolutionary, and we loved, like, we were modern in our own way. We were ahead of our time. We were technological. We had an internet convention called CyberSlam. We focused very heavily on music, like Mid-South did. We were very that way. But inside, like behind the scenes insular, like you said, just writing, it was very, very lo-fi. It was very something, I think the guys who were doing like C shows, like spot shows in 1976, I think they'd be very proud of it. But yeah, man, that's how it was. It was, we were the little engines that could, and we really were, like, we had tomorrow's music playing on the show.
That's awesome.
We created trends. We were the t-shirts on everybody's back, but little did they know that it was because we were trying as much as possible to throw everything back a generation or so and kind of get that over on them without them even realizing it, for their own viewing pleasure and entertainment.
Definitely. The craziest Dudley Boy story that you have, go. As far as you being out there, I know we've all heard the heat wave deal. Would you say that is crazy, or was there crazier?
Gosh, there was a riot in Staten Island, and I thought Big Dick was going back to jail. And there was, we had one in Pennsylvania at, like, I don't remember if it was not Valley Forge, I forget the town. We had a riot in Pennsylvania at the National Guard Armory. You know what I mean? Like, not like, oh man, somebody pick up the phone and get the National Guard over here. Unnecessary. It was in their house. You know what I mean? Like, imagine if there's a fire in a firehouse and you just have to slide down the pole and put it out. Like, you didn't need to call the National Guard because you brought the riot to them into the National Guard Armory, and all of a sudden there's dogs running around, and like Tracy Smothers just got out of the shower and he's got a towel around his waist and he's asking somebody to hold his watch so he could go fight the dogs because nobody's gonna get over on the boys. And like, I don't even know what was going on. Like, I mean, sometimes you just see some stuff and you say to yourself, I'm still in that 18 to 24-year-old demographic, and I just haven't lived long enough, and this is just one of those moments that I have nothing to bring to. Absolutely. I'm just gonna learn this is for the future. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, this one's for the kids.
Absolutely. So the summer is 1999, and ECW is on fire, as I said. The acclaimed video game Hardcore Evolution had come out, and ECW went on to TNN for the first time. Was it right before or after Roller Jam?
We were the leader.
There you go. So
we got to be Roller Jam's leader.
You were my every Friday night, honestly. Yeah, like literally, I can remember sitting in front of the television, 9 years old, and well, like you just did right here. It's giving me chills right now, literally sitting right across from you. But it was such a crazy time to be a wrestling fan. I mean, you had everything going on. You had WWF, WCW, ECW, all at each other all the time. What was some of your memories of TNN? Just the idea that you guys were on a nationally syndicated
television show?
TNN was interesting. I think it's more interesting to look at it looking back with hindsight, because we were the pioneers. You know, we were the kind of you know, for want of a better term, and obviously, you know, it's Native Americans and it's not Indians, but for want of getting the expression over, we were the Indians that got the arrows in our backs. You know what I mean? I don't know. You know, TNN was, we did what we could with the fact that we were obviously, their whole business model, their whole creative model was predicated around, you know, they started with country western, down south, and then as far as TV shows, they stuck with stuff like, even when we were on in 99, 2000, there was, you know, Dukes of Hazzard, Alice, stuff like nothing against, you know, nothing against that. You know, I'm a city kid. I don't ever want anybody to think that I'm disparaging it, but it was it was a theme. You know, I'm not saying it because it's lowly. I'm saying it because it was niche, right? And TNN originally stood for the Nashville network, and then they started to try to branch away, and CBS wanted to put it over as the national network. They didn't go so ham-handed with it as to very much come out and say it was the national network. They did what KFC did when they stopped calling themselves Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they just called themselves KFC, right? But when you do that, you have people running around like, oh, are they doing that because it's not really chicken? So they just called themselves TNN. And I think the guinea pig, one of them at least, a guinea pig, maybe the largest, was us. To see if they could have stuff on there that went outside their wheelhouse. And I think they came to find out that we did very well. And then there was other stuff like Roller Jam that didn't do as well. And then it was just a time in wrestling where it was time for a shift, and TNN was an option for WWE. And WWE was an option for TNN.
So you guys got the boot.
And we got the boot,
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I remember being so angry about that. I was literally, to me, it drove me nuts that WWF, who was on the USA Network at the time, was jumping to TNN. And they were taking my favorite television show, you know, not the same time slot, but they wanted to see if wrestling worked. You guys, exactly what you just said. They wanted to make sure wrestling could work on that network. They did. And then they literally gave ECW the boot. Now, were you guys still, even after you were off TNN, were you still doing pay-per-views at the time?
And we did pay-per-views until the very end, to the point where we had a billboard up on our January 2001 pay-per-view for the March one. For a March 2001 pay-per-view, Living Dangerously, maybe the third, maybe the fourth. But what would be Living Dangerously 2001 in March that never happened. So we were doing pay-per-views until the very end, yeah.
And that January pay-per-view, that was the one with like York and Matthews and you in the beginning and stuff like that. So how did
Quick story?
Yeah, sure.
I was at that January pay-per-view. I was kind of upstairs at the Hammerstein, and I was totally dejected. I was like in a funk, and I was depressed, and I was just shook, and I had my head in my hands. York and Matthews had started, I don't know, let's call it a year or so earlier, maybe not even a year, I don't know. And I'm working with them, and they see me, and I guess that they don't think, you know, they're like, that's not how he usually is. So they were like, dude, like, you okay? Like, what's up? Like, you all right? I was like, if you guys had only started 2.5 years earlier, because I felt like if they would have started 2.5 years earlier than they did and got that time and got that exposure and got on Vince's radar, that everything would have timed out better for them, where even if ECW wasn't going to be around, they could have gotten seen, got noticed, and got picked up, both of them.
super underrated guys. And I mean, we all know that Joey went on to be part of the M&M tag team, and we saw Christian York on Gut Check, but I still didn't feel like he ever got his due, so to speak. Great guys, and yeah, that's just one of the memories that sticks out in my mind. I think of you in the ring and Christian York, Joey Matthews, you know, like, oh man, this is great. And you know, they were Virginia, Maryland boys too, so they were all very popular in the scene. The demise, not to bring it down on such a craziness note, but the demise of ECW, how did you find out? Was it a lot of people? Some people say they didn't even get a call. Some people say they didn't, anything like that. What was your initial, it's over with?
I mean, you saw writing on the wall, but everything in ECW was need to know. Like at the very early, like I couldn't have told you that we were in a partnership with WWF. I had no idea. It was not common knowledge, because then it would look wonky and people would talk about it and it would be fake and it would be orchestrated and it would, you know, there was meant to be an aura of mystery about it, enough so that it was, let's call it almost at the level of Working the Boys.
Yeah. So Paul knew, but nobody else knew. So.
Right. So we're not getting paychecks from Titan Sports. We're getting paychecks from HHG Incorporated, which is, we're told it stands for Heyman Gordon.
The mother and father company.
Yeah, mom and pop company. So, you know, it's neat to know. When did I know? I mean, it gets to a point in, I don't know if it was the entire second half of 2000 or if it was more the fourth quarter, but it gets to a point however many months before we shut the doors where every other check is not cashing. It gets to a point where the boys are starting to be owed thousands, and some of them are worried about, you know, making their mortgage and why did I buy this house and that kind of thing. And it gets to the point, you know, people have to get to the bank early as possible so that the check would cash. And it was tough, and I believe that Paul was out in California shopping for a deal, and we would be told different things, but everything, you know, I feel almost like a statute of limitations, if they're, you know, like, has been lifted to where there are so many, you know, just incidental kind of like anecdotal, like the last November to Remember in 2000. I remember being in the studio being told that we were looking at Nassau Coliseum. You know, where the Islanders play, you know, like a, you know, 15,000 seater.
That was the first place I ever worked for WWE. Nassau
So
Coliseum.
there you go. And I would have loved to have worked there, as, you know, growing up in Brooklyn and having been to Nassau as a fan but when it wasn't there, we were told that it was moved to Mandalay Bay. We had a connection with Jason Hervey, who was there, and it wound up being in the Chicago suburbs at a building that we ran before. So I don't know, you know, there's that, there's the checks, there's
It was just the writing was
TNNs, and the writing was just kind of, you know, I mean, I didn't know what to look at and look for at the time, but if you knew what to look for, you know, some of the boys were like, you know, this could be the end. Like, they all knew at the last house show in Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing this. I had Francine on my podcast a few months ago, and because I wasn't in Pine Bluff, and I remember her talking about that, and she was like, at the end of the night there, she's like, everybody knew, like the boys who were in a position to hire because they had like a business outside the business, were like, hey, you know, if you need work, you can come work for me. And like, so by the last night, you know, there was nobody who, you know, saw Paul on TV at WrestleMania in April and were like, well, I guess this is real. Like at a certain point, everybody knew. I had been told that WCW might be interested in me and that it might be worthwhile me reaching out to them. But obviously, if I'm under contract, we can't talk. That's tampering. So I talked to Paul, and he knew that I would go down with the ship to where I would try to be underneath the ship trying to lift it up through adrenaline. And I asked him, and I prefaced, I asked him a leading question, begging him to answer it in a certain way. If there's, WCW, somebody said I should talk to them, somebody said it could be an opportunity, but I'm not, I want to stay, but, after 7 buts, if there's anything you can tell me, and he was like, I gotta be honest with you, he's like, I heard everything you said, and based on it all, let me go ahead and I'll sign off on you and I'll give you the release. I think you should talk to me. So for me, that's when I knew, but everybody probably had their own moment.
I'm almost wondering if they were like brokering deals with people before everybody knew, if they were taking certain select ECW stars and, hey, we're gonna bring you to WWF right away, and you already knew about it. But that's crazy. I never knew about the WCW thing with you, so that's awesome. What are you into nowadays? Now that there is no more ECW, we have WWE, we have AEW as a current product. What are you doing? Are you still on the independent scene? You're still around? You're still making all these convention appearances and stuff like that?
Yeah, I threw up my hands about 10 years ago, for sure, maybe 5 years ago, and I realized the best way to answer the question, what do you want to do? Because I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I'm tired of it now, right? Like, and I try to look young enough to where it's cute to say, but then eventually you get to a certain point, right, where it's like, it's not cute, you know what I mean? But what I've done is, in an effort to be clever, I think, now, if somebody were to ask me what I do for a living or what my dream job would be or anything like that, I just want to be me. I want to monetize being me. I want to
give it up for him. Seriously. That's the coolest thing I've heard so far. I mean, we're just getting started on the show, but literally just being you. That's awesome.
They say if you like what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I don't have the work ethic that my dad has. But for me, it's not just liking what you do. So for me, because of my work ethic, it's also easy. If it's easy, it's not work. And for me, easy is get dressed, open the door, head out into the world, and be me, and try to get paid for it.
There you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to say thank you on behalf of Brian's Wrestling Collection to Mr. Joel Gertner for coming out here today. Everybody give it up for him. All right, guys, we are going to be sending it over to Jason Knupp with The Many Roads.
We are here with the many roads we've traveled. Toys, right? Tell us about the many roads we've traveled. What do we got here on the table?
Got a little bit of everything. Tried to cover all bases, anywhere from WWE to WWF to ECW to AAA, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and everything else in between.
All right. Tell people how they can find you. How can they get in touch with the many roads we traveled? Now, you mentioned an Instagram page. You also mentioned doing some custom Hasbro wrestling figures.
Yes.
Tell us about those.
Unfortunately, I didn't bring any of the custom Hasbro figures with me, but if you go on Instagram, the many roads we travel, you'll find the pictures, and also on Facebook as well. We're on there, the many roads we travel. If there's a certain figure you're looking for, shoot us a message, let us know what you're looking for. We may have it. If not, we might be able to get a hold of it.
All right, thank you very much again. Great name, the many roads we've traveled. Check them out on Instagram. Brian, let's pick it up again. We're throwing it back to you, my man.
Thank you so much. We're going to bring the next guest on to Brian's Wrestling Collection Live, episode 100 for YouTube. To be honest with you, he's got a lot of different names. He's got Mr. Hollywood. He's got Playboy. I call him Uncle. Some people call him Dirty Red. And my brother-in-law over here, Adam Armstrong, he calls him as the guy who gets all the free pay-per-view links. Ladies and gentlemen, Playboy Bobby Starr. Man, it used to be played here in this building every month.
Yep.
Every
This
month.
building along with a bunch of other ones here in Baltimore.
That's so awesome. Well, welcome to Brian's Wrestling Collection Live. Playboy Bob, Starr. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing great. I'm awake. That's great for starting since I worked like 73 hours.
That's half the battle. When you sent me that message and you said, man, this is going to be crazy today, yeah. All right, man, we're going to talk. We're going to get into the nitty gritty. We're talking about a very well career that you have had for yourself. WWF, WCW, we've got tons of memories. We've got independent stuff. You are a Maryland Hall of Famer in your own right 2 times over.
Yeah, a couple times.
Give it up for him. That's right. That definitely deserves. That's awesome. All right, Bob, we're gonna dive right into the start of WCW for you. Is this the first part of your career?
No, not really. It kind of, I've been wrestling independents for 5 years, 6 years, and you can thank your father and Uncle Duane for that one because they got the call, or I should say Larry Sharp got the call, he called them for Salisbury TVs, and we were off to the races.
So who was your first match that you had on television?
Nikita Koloff.
Stiff?
Right after he turned babyface, sorta.
Stiff, or was he cool?
Sorta. He wasn't used to that. The babyface. He'd never been a babyface before. And in fact, he yelled at me after the match. He's like, "You didn't fight back enough." I'm like, "Dude, you're gigantic. It's all good. You know, I got paid."
Who's the booker at the time for WCW? Jody Hamilton?
Hamilton was still
All right.
good, but Jody Hamilton booked extras for forever. I mean, he's a great guy, and he loved the crew I bring to him because they got the first hookup when I called for Baltimore. There was just a TV taping coming. I kept calling, bugging. And finally, Jody got on the phone. He goes, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "I'd like to work to have the TV taping coming to Baltimore." And I reminded him who I was because it had been like 6 months since we did that show. And he's like, "Fine." And he booked me and Axel, and I think Duane was there. Your dad wasn't, but it was just from there. It just kept going, and just like them guys in WWF, it was me at WCW.
Now, time frame year-wise, what year was this?
92, 3, 4, 5.
So you're on fire starting in '92. Is this independent career beforehand?
Slightly.
So-
Because back then, remember, there wasn't as many indie shows back then as it is now. I mean, we like to think it was, but when you really look at the dates, I don't know, just like one indie promotion anywhere might run 5 times a year, right? So then this guy in Pennsylvania is running X amount of times a year, and you're only going to work for him once or twice a year because, face it gets old. There's no TV, there's no, whatever. So, I mean, but we were pretty regular, and plus the local guys here that had the promotion WWF, I did the ring rentals too. So I got booked on a lot of shows that normally they wouldn't even have called me, but because I was already there, they just put me on,
That's awesome. So as far as WWF, and we were talking about merchandise earlier, I'm gonna air this. I'm gonna send the camera right now over to the picture. Boom. There's the photograph of WWF Bashed in the USA. I think that this VHS had to come out in 1993.
We were just talking about that. That was, I don't remember what year it was. We were on a Canadian loop though, and we did 40-man battle royals and everything. We were just talking about this an hour ago. And it's amazing because it's the only proof that I was ever in WWF because they actually did something with the video, but it was really cool. I remember a fan jumped the railing, and we found out why you don't do that when Skinner took those boots and kicked the guy in the face and he spit his teeth out in the ring. We'll never forget that. The very beginning, and we did, and the first night we did it, we got yelled at. Vince screamed at us all because we're all there laughing our ass off. It's like, what do you do when you put 40 of your friends together and, okay, let's start swinging. Okay, this is gonna be fun, especially when Glenn Root's in there and Chaz and those two. It was like the 18 Stooges. And it's like, so we did it again the next night, and that's the one that's on that video.
The list of talent that is in that video itself, just that
It's
match,
insane.
is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Bret Hart, you got Rick D'Amato Martel, you have tons of different people. All of you guys are in that, and the Mountie, Jacques Rougeau,
Berserker, the Road Warriors, the Beverly Brothers.
many guys that aren't even with us anymore.
Yeah, that's something else that every time I get together with any of the guys, it doesn't matter who it is, it's I don't know if it's alarming or if it's just life. But yeah, most of the guys that I put over that were humongous stars are no longer with us, and it's for one reason or another, you know. And everybody likes to blame just drugs or just this or just, it's a combination of everything, but the bottom line is they're still not here.
Yeah, and the lifestyle back then was way crazier for the talent back then in comparison to modern day.
We would have went to jail.
Yeah.
Several times. Thank God there was no cell phones back then.
Yeah,
but,
no proof, no video footage.
but we lived like rock stars back then, and not saying that none of us were millionaires. You know, we got paid, we worked. It's not like today. Today, you kids go for contracts. Back then, yeah, we would have liked one, but we got paid everything we worked. So if you don't work, you don't get paid. That's where there's a difference in the business now, because these kids today, why should they go out there and learn more? They already think they know everything because they're on TV, and that's not necessarily true. I've been around this game for 32 years, whatever it is. I learn something every time I get in the ring.
Absolutely.
And it's funny, I'll bring up one quick story, a side story. I was wrestling you. It was for a guy named Mike in Pennsylvania. And I'll never forget it because I tell Brian, like right before we go out to the ring, it's a small crowd.
It was Mother's Day weekend.
Yes. Yeah. So it's the anniversary just a couple of weeks ago. And I tell Brian, I said, when you super kick me, I'm not getting up. I said, we're gonna scare the shit out of this guy. And it worked. The referee freaked out, the promoter freaked out.
I feel like we had half the locker room
Yeah,
clearing out, coming to the ring because I hit
him
him so hard with that super kick. I barely touched him, but I mean, I smacked my leg so hard. It was the biggest bump, and he literally was out for the longest period of time, to the point where now the promoter is so scared, he's like, I think we're gonna have to call 911. He's not moving. Like, please, can we resuscitate him? Can we figure? I mean, he is freaking out. I mean, I'm just watching the sweat drip down his face, and he's dead, but you can tell in typical Bob fashion, he's smiling his ass off, just laying there on the ground like, we got him. And then it wasn't until I'd say you were there for a good 15 minutes. Like,
yeah, I was tired, man. I'm old. I just laid there and took a rest. And it's so funny because I made one eye contact with Brian. That's all I had to do. He knew I was fine. And I'm just like, I'm just going to lay here. And this guy's told me to call an ambulance. I'm like, calm down. Let the people that are here actually believe what we're doing and just keep doing what you're doing. But do not call a paramedic.
Yep, I think we were like 10 minutes in, and I literally said, if you're still good, grab my finger and squeeze it. And he squeezed my finger. I knew he was good. I said, okay, cool, that's awesome. And but you know, thinking about just how much fun we've had over the years, I think there's a million different places you and I have wrestled each other. Yeah. From John Rambo's to shows for Dick Karakoff to MWF to SSW, you name it. I mean, we've wrestled each other everywhere. But I honestly have to say, one thing I was going to talk about today, which is funny to me, is everybody knows that you've also done time as a referee on the Independents.
Absolutely.
So we were in this building exactly. The main event was January the 4th, 2013. It was Mike Height versus Brian Hardy for the MWF Championship with Bob Starr as the referee.
Yeah, I remember up and down 400 times. Let's do all these false finishes. I'm like, Brian.
Talk about, I wanted to be Ric Flair back at that time. 60 minutes. Bob looked at the sheet and he said, you guys are going out there and doing 60 minutes. I said, we're doing 60 minutes tonight. And he's like, you guys Broadway? And I'm like, no, he's putting me over. And he's like, what? So all of a sudden, we are in the ring, and about 5 minutes into the match, I do a dive on the outside to Mike. Mike cracks his head against the floor here, and he is just knocked out cold. And I was trying to get my hand behind him at the time. I couldn't. He was knocked out cold. I roll him back in the ring. Bob says, what's wrong? I said, he's knocked out right now. He said, huh? I grab him in a headlock. I said, Mike, just work with me.
And he's not there.
He's not. The lights are on, but nobody's home. I shoot him in to do something. All of a sudden, he accidentally kicks me in the face. Now we are at a point where him and I are almost both knocked out. Bob Starr, as the referee, is calling spot for spot the entire match for the two wrestlers inside of the ring.
It's because neither one of you knew what the hell you were both out. It was hilarious because I'm thinking, oh, this is great. Main event, 60 minutes. They're both out. Good. This is going to be fun. And you pulled it off.
The match was great. You can go back and find it on DVD. You would have never known that unless you heard this story. We'll actually show some clips of that match in this 100 episode. But I want to thank you on a personal level, because that was one of those you saved my ass moments, honestly.
That's how actually, I mean, because honestly, there's not much work out there right now because everybody owns a school and the referees work cheap or work for nothing, and I can't do that, you know. But it's the promoters would call me, and if they had somebody coming in that they weren't sure about, like to put their local people together, because of course all the name guys are fine. They don't, all they need is just a third person, right? And it takes 3 to tango, or to say whatever. But they knew that I could do that because I learned that at WCW when I was doing enhancement matches. You get knocked out all the time. You know, they may not want to admit to it, but you do.
That's true.
And the next thing you know, the referee's telling you what to do, and you're looking at him going, huh? And the other dude's on the other side of the ring, he's looking at you, hoping that Christ you can get up. And it's, you know, that's part of the thing. You're the third man. You know?
I don't think that the fans realize how important the referees are, like what an intricate part of the match they are. So, especially in that setting, in this building, in such a high-profile title match, and like I said, for us to both be knocked out, and I'm just looking at you, Uncle Bob, listen, all right, grab this, do this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, man, this was killer. So, good times, good memories.
Hi, I'm No Comparison Joe Harrison, and I want to congratulate the second generation sensation Brian Hardy on 100 episodes of Brian's Wrestling Collection Live. Here's to 100 more, and thank you for being such an awesome part of the wrestling community.
We're gonna play, I like to always do this with you anytime that we've had you on the podcast before and stuff like that. I wanna do a profile game where I'm gonna name a few different names, and I want you to give me small memory, small story, or just, you know, one word answer if you want.
This is where the censor button comes in.
All right, this is where the edit button comes in on Brian's Wrestling Collection, so that's gonna be funny. All right, here we go, first one, Shawn Michaels.
He was amazing in the ring. Got to work with him one time. And I remember he was pissed off that me and Chris Kanyon had like beards growing from being on the road for 2 weeks and long hair, and he didn't like that because him and Diesel were doing that. And I could hear Vince McMahon tell him, they don't work for us. We can't tell them to cut their hair off. What is wrong with you? That was funny, but he was amazing in the ring.
Scott Hall.
We just talked about him too. We just lost him recently. Scott was a great guy. He really was. I think you had to get past a little bit, like he had that wall, everybody does, right? Because you meet people all the time in this business. But if you got past that, he saw me around enough that, you know, he knew I was cool. I was, you know, one of the boys. It wasn't just, you know, guys going to show up once. And it was rough when he passed away. I mean, yeah, he did some crazy, stupid stuff in his life, just like everybody, you know what I mean? But he also was part of one of the hottest times ever.
I was going to say, such an important part of wrestling history, and I think he will sorely, sorely be missed forever. Sting.
Great guy. I'm the only guy in his whole run at WCW. It was funny. I blew my knee out, and he knew it. And he didn't pin me. He just pinned me. He didn't do the scorpion deadlock. And all I could think was, oh, I'm going to get my ass chewed tonight. Like, as soon as I hit that curtain, they're gonna come after me, like I did something wrong. And it's like, he had already went to him and told him, I'm just gonna pin the kid. And I'm like, I thought that was cool. Cool. What does he care? You know what I mean? But he knew, he'd see me every week at TV, and he knew I was hurt. And it's like, working with Sting is easy anyway. You know, he's a good guy.
Cool match. Yep. Literally, at the end, he picks you up and gives you props. So
six minutes of my 6 minutes I paid you.
Yeah, and he was world champion at the time. Yeah. So that's
no,
pretty
he
crazy.
went that next week, if I remember right, is when he broke Ray Bruce's neck.
Yep.
In Japan. And they taped that match to air just as they flew over, and then they had to tape it and came back. Yep. And Sting didn't make the next tapings because of that. I think, did Rude win the belt? Or
I don't remember.
He ended up with his neck broke.
I do remember seeing the footage multiple times, though. Your man, Randy Savage.
So, Randy was another one just like Sting. I had just got hurt. I twisted my knee up when I was at home, and I still made the trip. And he saw me limping around. He's like, "Little brother, don't worry, you'll get paid. You know, we'll get some." I'm like, "No, you don't get this, Randy." I said, "You're like one of my heroes. I grew up watching this guy, and treated him like everybody. Every time he raised his hand to Elizabeth, and blah blah blah." And that's when I was coming in, and that's when I started doing the business, you know. But it was like this guy in these amazing outfits with this beautiful woman. And I will still say to this day, one of the only women that didn't have to dress like the sleeves or do all that, the stuff that made it NC-17. All that lady had to do was smile, and people lost their minds. And it's like, when I worked with Randy, obviously she wasn't there. they hadn't got back together. They got back together as a team, a unit, because they were already divorced in NWO. But this is what doing his babyface run. He was, I think he was world champion. He was either world champion or on the race to the world title. And he only did like a couple of matches. And that's what I said to him. I said, dude, this is like a dream. He's like, all right, we'll do it. And I told them, he crushed me with 3 elbows that night. I've never been hit so hard in my whole life. I wrestled Bobby Eaton. I didn't do anything. I wrestled Randy Savage, and I couldn't breathe. But it was cool because I wrestled a Macho Man. And that's something these kids today, none of them can say.
Absolutely.
Because there are, and I'm not putting down anybody, because anybody that puts on the tights, whether you suck or you're great, you're putting a toll on your body, you're putting miles on your body, you're doing the whole thing. But it's like, there are no more Macho Mans. You can say, oh, John Cena. John Cena ain't there no more. The Rock, he's not there anymore.
Hollywood.
The other guys, they're stars, but they're not Randy Macho Man Savage. I mean,
Back when wrestling was wrestling. That's the reality of it. Mark Merrow.
oh man, he's a success story after the business. Really, Mark Merrow's a great guy. And the stuff he does with the kids in the schools is absolutely amazing. I mean, yes, he's getting paid. It's a career, but you know what? He's really good at it.
Motivation.
And it's from the heart, you know? And
Very
I'm happy for him. You know, he ran a hell of a thing on here between the Johnny Bad character. See, I worked with both, and it was two totally different things. The Johnny Bad character, I loved that thing. I know he did the Kiss That Doesn't Miss. And I said to him, and I said, do me a favor as well. I said, can you just because I'll be sweaty, can you just stick it to my face and don't peel the back off? He goes, why would I do that? I said, because I want to take it home. And I still, to this day, I have a collection that's a little stuff I picked up on the road. And it was funny because I jumped him after that match, and this was all his idea. And they were screaming until they watched the replay, and it looked okay. Nobody had not got knocked out at that point, right? So he's like, well, we'll do it this way, and I'll pin you, and then you jump me afterwards, and then shoot me off, and I'll knock you. You go for a back drop, bang, I'll knock you out. It came off without a hitch, but they were mad because I guess he didn't run it by somebody to change something, and they had their idea exactly what the finish was going to be. But Mark's an awesome guy. And it's to this day, check him out. I mean, Mark Merrow all over Facebook.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he's on Facebook and Instagram. He literally is advertising like crazy all the time, and just doing very positive things for the entire community.
The stuff that he does, talking to these kids in these schools, unfortunately, I'm guessing we're either live or going to air soon, and it's the stuff that just happened in Texas with all those kids getting killed. We live in a really weird world right now, and in 1994, I'm sure that stuff happened, but it must not have happened much because I don't remember.
It wasn't as publicized as it is today.
And it's it sucks because they have to report it so you know what's going on in the world, but you're also making them famous, and they don't deserve it.
Exactly. That's a type of fame they don't deserve. So, last but not least, sensational Sherry Martel.
Everybody asks me. There was they asked me that at my Hall of Fame thing, and I don't even get it. We were just friends, but she was so helpful everywhere we went, just ideas, and just going and speaking to people, and Joel knows. Sherry Martel was an amazing person, and she died way too young. So did a lot of other people, and I can't control this.
No, that's real. This is
not Flair. I don't have.
no. This is the realest part of Brian's Wrestling Collection Live. We want it all.
People, a lot of the people that are close to me know that I grew up single child, single parent. So the people that I met on the road that you see all the time. But of course, there's a lot of guys in indie shows today. They meet you once and they think 2 years later you're gonna remember them. It's like, I don't mean to insult you, but no, not at all. You know, but when you would see each other, you're putting your lives in each other's hands. Like with Sherry would always look out for me. She'd always go have a little talk with whoever it was. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it helped. I'm still standing. Most of the guys
you're in one piece. Yeah.
It must have worked, but no, she was just such a great person, and so many of them were. Scott, I mean, yeah, he had his good times in bed, but he was a great guy. But like, you know, your dad and Duane, it's like family. With them two, tighter because we came up together. But when you travel the roads with these people all the time, and it's like, no matter what we were talking about, we were talking last night that I hung out with him. We did an independent show, and it's funny because me and Uncle Duane had to wrestle twice that night because the Road Warriors. It's a funny story. There's a town here and there's a town here, and they're the same name, but it's a different state. And the dude tells them to go to he didn't give him an address. He just said, go back in the day. You just look at a map. They went to the wrong town. So we've got to work our matches, and then we got to work the main event. We get back to the hotel, and Hawk's just sitting there. He goes, it's about time you guys get back here. Come on, let's have dinner. And me and Duane are trying to save money. Bro, I got it. Don't worry about it. Get anything you want. And he just wanted to sit there and talk to two people that weren't like chasing him for an autograph or being just what fans are. I mean, you know, every once in a while you get tired of it, I guess. Me, I don't know that because I was nowhere near that. But you know, just hanging out with the guys sometimes, people don't realize that wrestlers are human. Definitely. And the kids of today, everything's kind of, it's not that it's not earned to a certain point, but it's handed to them. You know, here's a contract. If we don't call you, you just sit home and go to the gym and eat good and get paid well. What is that? We started that. How we started when we did work. You know, I don't lie. We made good money, but it's still nothing like what today is.
And injuries were way different back then too. Or, you know,
yeah, because
taped it up and just went on with it. Where now it's like take 6 months off.
When I came in at the end of that. Terry, Bam Bam Gordy, Bam Bam Bigelow, all those guys, and they were trying to protect their spot. And like, I was never any kind of threat to anybody. But the thing of it is they were protecting their spot, and they sometimes were a little bit rough. But again, just like with the Sherry thing, once she would say something to somebody, hey, he's cool, whatever, and they never bothered me. You know, I never had a problem. I had one problem with good old Vader. I've never lived it down in Baltimore, and he turned out to be good friends later. I just watched him beat up my whole crew.
Oh, Leon, that's funny. Well, we thank you so much for coming on to Brian's Wrestling Collection. We seriously appreciate you, and
absolutely,
you know the love and the respect that I have for you.
I told you, man. I remember you when you were just a little tiny one. It's funny because that's what I said. It's like a family. Anytime you need me for anything, all you gotta do is call.
I'm quoted on this. I'll be quoted on YouTube. I'll be quoted live in front of people. I said, if tomorrow I was to have a $30 million wrestling company, if I was to somehow fall into hitting the lottery or whatever, Bob Starr would be the first person I would call to have on my roster.
And I would be like, I might be able to count 3.
All right, guys, everybody give it up for Playboy Bob Starr. Thank you so much, Bob. Up next on Brian's Wrestling Collection, we are sending it over to Jason Knupp, who is standing by with Second Chance Toys.
All righty, thank you again, Brian and Bob Starr. Thank you very much. Beautiful memories, beautiful thoughts. Guys, we're here with Second Chance Toys, and I really dig that name because toy collecting, especially for adults, is a second chance to go back and relive your childhood. Is that kind of where the name came from?
Sure is.
Okay. Tell us about Second Chance Toys. Where can we find you? What do you got here? You got Classic Superstars, Jack's Classic Superstars, one of the best lines of all time. Where is Second Chance Toys? How can people reach out to you?
We are right off of B&A Boulevard, 7614, pretty much about 5 minutes down the road from here. We carry pretty much anything from LJNs up to today's lines, new and packaged, used, parts, pieces, whatever you need. This is just kind of a little taste of what we carry. We also carry other toy lines, you know, G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man, all that crap too. But yeah, I mean, right now with the business the way it is, the action figure lines, they're just moving quickly and fast, and a lot of people are involved. So, yes.
Awesome. Now, you guys are toy sellers, obviously. Are you toy collectors as well?
That's how it started.
What's your line? What do you collect?
LJNs.
LJNs, yes,
Yep.
near and dear to my heart.
Yep.
All right, thanks everybody. Second Chance Toys, check them out. Let's throw it back to Brian.
Jason, I thank you, man. I tell you what, I love Second Chance Toys. There's nothing better I like than just chilling at home on a weekday, not doing anything, and saying, John, you in the store today? All of a sudden, I head over there, I talk with John, I talk with Joe. It's a great place. Check it out if you haven't. Second Chance Toys of Glen Burnie, Maryland. Honestly, guys, we're talking about this venue a lot today, the history of this venue and what it means, not only to Maryland wrestling, but what it means to me as an individual is absolutely crazy, because I tell you this much, I've had a lot of championship matches in here. Such names in this building like Jerry the King Lawler. I've wrestled Robbie E., Eric Young, ton of different people in this building. I have so many memories of this building. But we also have the historic Mwf Hall of Fame that was started back in 2011 that features many of the Hall of Famers of Maryland and beyond. We're talking about different people like Terry Funk. We're talking about the likes of the late promoter Dick Karakoff. We are talking about Bad Boy Very Hardy, and the list goes on and on. But ladies and gentlemen, we are going to break for a brief commercial, and we're coming back with another special guest.
We're living in the 1980s. We'll be right back after this. Oh, hey, B. Ryan. What's shaking, Big Daddy? The excitement's so thick in the air, you can't even cut it with a Ginsu knife. It's your old pal, Smash Ventura, the neon icon. And on behalf of everyone at Smash Ventura Productions and my rock band, the Scumbags, brother, we just can't say it enough. We wish you the absolute best. Congratulations on the upcoming 100th episode. And as I always say to people who just inspire me incredibly like you do, keep living larger than life. See you in the past, buddy.
Smash Ventura TV.
And we're back on the 100th episode of Brian's Wrestling Collection Live. Jason Knupp from the New 80s Revolution is standing by with a special guest.
Thank you, Brian. That is right. Special guest indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Maryland wrestling legend, Maryland Wrestling Hall of Famer, Jammin' Joe Mcmullen, ladies and gentlemen. Now, sir, you are not unknown to this building. In fact, you were inducted into the Maryland Wrestling Hall of Fame right here in this building in 2015. Let's talk a little bit about that night. What was that like for you?
Well, that night was a proud moment because Brian had inducted me into his Hall of Fame, and I had never wrestled for him, so that kind of gave me the knowledge of what respect Brian had for me for just being around the wrestling business as long as I had. And I think Brian may have said it that night, or Bob did. If you went to an independent show, Jammin' Joe was there either working or in the back or just watching. And it was a great moment. I treasure that moment. It's one of the better moments of the wrestling business for me.
Awesome. Now, you also came up in business with Barry Hardy and Duane Gill, is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I would really love a Barry Hardy story. Can you just, is there anything that you can tell us without getting us thrown out of here or close out? Is there any Barry Hardy stories for us?
The one I can tell that we won't get thrown out or the police won't come in and investigate. There is one? There is one, yeah. Includes you too. Yeah, we were in Canada doing that Canadian loop, Hamilton, Ontario, Ottawa, Cornwall, back to Baltimore, 2,500 miles traveling. Duane and I are in one car, Barry's in the car behind us. I'm driving. Of course, you always play road tag and we're messing around with each other driving down the road. Duane goes, watch this. He looks out the window, looks back at Barry, and goes, I got this. Puts a full cup of coffee out the window, throws it up in the air, and it lands right on Barry's windshield. I mean, nobody could have timed that better but Duane.
Awesome stuff, awesome stuff. Thank you very much, Jammin' Joe Mcmullen. Wrestling, Maryland Wrestling Hall of Fame, ladies and gentlemen, Jammin' Joe Mcmullen. Let's keep the show going. Back to you, Brian.
All right, Jason, thank you so much. Man, what history is in this building today? Jammin' Joe, an MWF Hall of Famer, but more importantly, such a historical part of Maryland wrestling history. Love having him here as a special guest today. That's great. What I'd like to do right now, this is a very special moment for me. I would like to bring a guest on to Brian's Wrestling Collection Live, episode 100. Nobody knows this guy like I know him because he's my father. We call him the bad boy, Barry Hardy.
Here, I'll use this one.
All right.
That's my boys there, man. I really appreciate them.
Everybody give it up for bad boy Barry Hardy. Man.
Got a little laryngitis today, so it might sound a little weird.
Love the t-shirt. Brett put me in the sharpshooter. He did put you in the sharpshooter.
times.
Many a times, that's right. All right, welcome to Brian's Wrestling Collection. We are excited to have you here. We are here to talk about something which is awesome for you. I think Gilberg as well. We'll get into that later, but you are WWF, WCW, and ECW.
Yep. I got the trifecta, and I hit them all at the right points.
Awesome. Now we got to go one deeper than that, and let's start from the very beginning. Let's go back to the year 1990. Bad Boy Barry Hardy as the first Maryland champion ever.
Yeah, that was a wild night.
All right, tell me a little bit about that.
I didn't want to be like everybody was doing the heavyweight champions, and that's one thing. Excuse me. That's one thing I didn't really do like throughout my career. I would always come up with something else if somebody wanted me to be a champion, American champion or whatever. But that night was awesome. Brandywine High School, and I had just talked to Wayne and Joe, and we were wrestling in my basement all the time when I had the ring. So Duane and I go out, and we do the gimmick and everything, and he puts me over. He came out as the Concrete Warrior, wearing a mask and carrying a skateboard.
Red singlet and the
baby
mask.
face. Here I am in pink. I'm the heel. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna rip off Bret Hart a little bit, wear the leather jacket and the pink tights, and Bad Boy was born. I did a few things for Larry Sharp back before that, and that's when he wanted me to be called Bad Habits Barry Hardy, and come out picking my nose and scratching my butt and all this, and I'm like, man, that's not me, dude, so I'm not that crazy funny guy. That's more my partner.
So you dropped Larry Sharp a few times already. You are a product of the Monster Factory.
Yes.
So what would you say training was like on average for you? How did you break into the business? Let's start there. How did you break into the business, and what would you say your training regimen was like as far as being a part of the Monster Factory?
Yeah. Well, I was never a wrestling fan. I truly hated wrestling, which is so strange. I was a big roller derby fan, and I was like, I want to be a roller derby star one day. I'd watch the Baltimore Cats and all that stuff. And when I was married to your mom, we just happened to go, and the only thing that really made me want to see a wrestling show was I seen Hulk Hogan, and he was Thunder Lips in the Rocky movie. So she was like, hey, she was like, you want to go to a show? I'm like, yeah. So we get there, and her co-worker, her boyfriend was Bill McCaffrey. So he would get front row tickets.
He worked for the Maryland State Athletic Commission.
I think he had friends in the Maryland Athletic Commission, actually, and I'm not sure if he worked for him or not. But he hated to sit on the side where the wrestlers came out because they would always get crushed, So they sat front row right across where people weren't crushing everybody. So he gave us the two end seats right beside the rail, and I'm like, wow, I see these guys come out and they're huge, So we're just sitting there, and I'm watching them, and I'm like, I can do this. And your mom was like, are you serious? I go, yeah. So I found out, and back then they were doing TV tapings, like NWA would come one week and WWF would come like 2 weeks later, and it was every month. They were just boom, 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 they were there. So I got the promoter's name, Gary Juster. So I just started hounding Gary Juster. I'm like, hey man, can you give me a wrestling school? And back then it was a closed shop. if you didn't have, a friend or you weren't a relative at the time, you basically weren't going to have that door open up for you. I mean, I was only like 185 pounds when I was doing this, so I wasn't like a big giant guy. I was in good shape, and I was an athlete all my life. I loved to play. I played baseball 8 years and played some football, basketball, and just different things, wrestled. And finally, about 2 years later, because I finally had started watching wrestling in 1985. That was when I had seen my first pro wrestling match with Hulk Hogan. So
that was the guy for you.
That was it, man. I was like, I want to be able to do what he's doing, And I mean, I'm not nowhere that size, but he's got good mic skills. So I'm thinking if I can combine the two together, and then seeing Ric Flair, who was a wrestling machine, I'm like, I think I'm going to take both of them and combine them into one, so I can talk a little bit and I can actually wrestle. So
now put you on the spot here. Before you ever saw Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan, was there any desire at all to dye your hair blonde?
I only, one time I did it. I did a Halloween costume contest. But actually that was after I did see Hulk Hogan. So, because I went to the costume contest as Hulk Hogan.
That's great.
But no, before that, I never dyed my hair. It was just brown the whole
So
time.
that totally then is credited to Hogan and Flair.
Yeah, well, Sting actually. I was a cross between Brian Bosworth and Sting. I was like, yeah, and Sting started dyeing his hair all white. So I went, well, I'm gonna go with his old dude with the dark on the sides, bleach the top in black, and that's gonna be Bad Boy Barry Hardy, and I'll just be a real jerk when I come out and mean to people and see what happens,
That's it. That's the greatest part of it. All right, so your initial meeting with Larry Sharp, and like I said, what was that training?
Yep, I went up and it was January, it was freezing cold out. Well, actually, I think it was end of December, and I went up and it was like snowing and everything. I was like, drive up to Paulsboro, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm here for a tryout. So he gives me a tryout, and takes me in the office, talks to me. He's like, yeah, I can train you. And back then, $3,000 to learn how to become a pro wrestler is $1,500 down, $100 a week. You don't have the money, don't show up. So I put the money down and went up, paid every week. I was there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I'm like, I'm gonna show these guys that, I want this bad.
So you're driving from Maryland to Paulsboro, New Jersey?
Yeah, I was assistant manager at Jiffy Lube, so I worked all day. 4 o'clock, I jumped in my car and drove to Paulsboro.
Just to be a smart ass right now for all the YouTube fans, how much was a gallon of gas back in the days?
Truthfully, I don't remember, but I know it was probably cheap.
Well, it's not what it is today, right?
No, you go broke now.
All right, so the initial first call for WWF, I believe your first WWF match was with Demolition?
Yes. Yep.
So how did that come about? At the time, was Larry just calling guys up to television?
No. I don't think any of them had gone up before that. I just happened to be up there. I took Dave Coleman up because Dave wanted to work
The surgeon.
The surgeon, yeah, the surgeon. Excuse me. And he's like, Barry, let's go up to the Monster Factory. I'm like, yeah, man, no problem, because Larry was very cool. Hey, we'll open it up and come on up. So I took him up, introduced Dave to Larry, and we were working out in the ring and all, and the phone rang, and Larry's like, hey, Barry, can you come in the office? So I go in the office and he's like, hey, how would you like to go to WWF? And I'm like, well, I really want to go to NWA, and he got a look on his face like, whoa, dude, I'm handing you something here, but you're not like biting what's going on. But I wanted to go to NWA because I was a smaller guy and I wanted to wrestle. And I knew if I went to WWF, they had the monsters there, and I wasn't going to wrestle. I was going to be the guy that got his butt kicked for a while, but then I just figured,
Made a living off of it,
Yeah, the door was opening up, and I'm like, if I turn this down and then I go to NWA and they just tell me to go back home, then I'm kind of, screwed in that aspect. So
Square one. We're gonna dive into so much more WWF stuff in just a little bit. We're gonna take a commercial break real quick.
Hey guys, it's the second generation sensation Brian Hardy, and you're watching episode 100 of Brian's Wrestling Collection, the live edition. And to be honest, we're out front of the Pit Stop Pub. If you want great food, if you want ice cold beer and a good time, party time, come to the Pit Stop Pub in Pasadena, Maryland. Welcome back to Brian's Wrestling Collection Live. This is episode number 100. We are here with the bad boy himself, Barry Hardy, and we're going to dive back into some more WWF stuff in just a bit. But let's talk about WCW. How did you even go from WWF to WCW? I mean, we're talking about, I know the early days of WCW, you guys were working under hoods, right?
Yeah, that was a one and done. So I wanted to go up there, and so we kept telling me, when I would talk to Jody, I would just tell him, hey man, we're gonna come up, but we got to be under the hoods, because if WWF finds us out, that's probably gonna be the end of us in WWF at the time.
Do you really think they wouldn't have used you guys for something like that?
Yeah, because I mean, like Duane and I was doing really well at WWF before I even brought Duane in at the time, and I think they would have got mad. Because here we are, and they're putting us on TV 2 and 3 times. Like, back then we were doing recordings, so it wasn't live. So we're doing 2 or 3 shows per night, being on them shows, All American, Superstars, Monday Night Primetime Wrestling. So they're giving us all this airtime, and I think they really would have been mad if they would have known that was Barry Hardy and Duane Gill. Eventually, they probably found out, but we didn't stay. We came back to WWF where we.
So as far as the WCW years, when you actually were there, were you at MGM? Was that MGM?
Yeah, Bob Starr said, hey Barry, do you want to go to the WCW? And I'm like, heck yeah, man, I'd love to go down there, because it was Florida. Who doesn't want to go to Florida?
Sunshine, and
yeah. So we did MGM and we did Universal Studios, and it was a blast, because here we are, we're down there, and they give you time. You'll be like, okay, well, you're on in the first segment in the morning. Okay, cool. Are we on anymore? No, but you got to come back. Okay, and you get like a couple hours for lunch. So me and Bob, we take off and we go in the park. And the one time, I can't even tell you how many times we rode that elevator. We just kept getting on and getting off, and it was awesome. It was good times going to WCW.
That's awesome. Some of your favorite opponents when you were there?
Wow, WCW. I mean, I wrestled Vader. He was stiff, really stiff, and separated my shoulder. But he loved the match. Came up, gave me a big hug after the match, and he was all excited. I wrestled Harlem Heat, which was really cool to wrestle them, because we kind of had hung out with Stevie Ray and Booker. So getting to wrestle guys that you hang out with, that's always a good time. And Arn Anderson treated me really well. I didn't wrestle him up there. But I would say my favorite match in WCW was Stars and Stripes. I loved wrestling Del and Marcus. I mean, great match, and right up there with that, Ming, because Ming came to me and he goes, "Hey brother," he goes, "I'm not gonna kick your butt like in 3 seconds like everybody else." He goes, "I want you to attack me." And I'm like, huh? He goes, "Yeah, throw a drop kick, I'll knock it down and we'll take it from there." I'm like, hey, okay.
And everybody says that he is this big, vicious, ferocious person. Yeah. But from what you're saying, it seems like he is the nicest guy in the world.
He's a great guy, but he's a bad dude, let me tell you.
We know the story. We know the story of Baltimore where he bit somebody's nose off. We've all seen the history books. We know that.
Yeah, and the really cool thing was, I mean, for him doing that for me, I put it over really well. So when I took that kick, I went into it full force, and I snapped my head back at the same time he put his foot up. So it looked like he kicked my head off. So I mean, as soon as he pinned me, the trainer and like 3 or 4 referees jump in the ring, and they're freaking out because they thought he killed me, And I'm like, I'm okay, guys, I'm okay, But the trainer, he was really freaked out. They thought he probably broke my neck, but never touched me. I mean,
the art of professional wrestling.
Yeah, and I mean, at that time, I was really I had just come out of WWF when me and Duane were on the road full time. So I would say I was in my prime at that time, and I was spot on with everything. Really good time in my life right there.
ECW. 1997. The summer of 1997 rolls around. You are wrestling with Nova as your tag team partner against the Dudley Boys. Do you remember that match?
Well, before that, the way it all started, they came to Rochester, New York, and I was up there, and I think it was the convention center or something up there in Rochester, and they came and they got me, and they were like, "Hey Barry, come in the back," you know, and Axel, because Axel was there, and I talked to Axel, and, "Hey man, would you mind doing a gimmick?" So they handcuffed me to Jason, you know, during, I think it was a Dudley Boys match.
The world's sexiest man, Jason?
Yeah, Jason, yeah. So I had to play the baby, which is really weird for me at that time because I had not been a baby, and I couldn't even tell you. I don't remember being a baby. Maybe as the Lords of Darkness, I was a baby somewhat. But yeah, and I was like, oh man, you know, the Dudley Boys are gonna wear me out with that chair because I'm handcuffed to him, you know, and I had to keep pulling him back and stuff, not letting him interfere in the match. That was the whole thing with having me handcuffed. But that's how basically I got into the ECW through that and Axel Rotten. And yeah, I went on the road and
Dudley Boys, your opponents, Nova's your opponents, Mikey Whipwreck. That's one of my favorite ECW matches. You and Mikey.
Yeah.
That
Great
was
wrestler.
FBI at that time. You were the unidentified FBI member.
For one match, I got to be an FBI guy, man.
I think
Tommy Rich, man, great guy, still friends with Tommy Rich.
Yeah, every time I see Guido, he always says, "I think that there's been 9,000 FBI members," and we just
it's a big faction.
So, and that's the thing, but it's you just keep adding and adding and adding to it. Well, guys, we are definitely going to have you around for a few more minutes, but we are going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be back with Brian's Wrestling Collection Live.
Brian Hardy, it's your boy Rich Steve right here for Snack Season Sauces. Brian's Wrestling Collection. I'm sorry that I couldn't come down there today, but as you know, I'm at the Grand Showboat. I am at the Carousel Room. It's Tournament of Survival. We got that sauce for GCW. Thank you so much for allowing us to sponsor you. If you want to get some sauce, you hit me up, you hit Brian up, you tell him I need that snack season, baby, and he'll get it to you right away. Thank you again. We'll see you next time.
And we are back. This is Brian's Wrestling Collection, episode 100 for YouTube today, with our special guest, Bad Boy Barry Hardy. And Barry, you weren't alone in your journey on this road. I think a special someone is standing right by.
Gilberg, you're up.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the longest reigning WWF Light Heavyweight Champion of all time, Duane Gill, Gilberg. Welcome to Brian's Wrestling Collection Live. Uncle Duane, man, this is going to be
Awesome, the two of you together on Brian's Wrestling Collection Live. If only walls could talk in arenas. If only walls could talk in hotel rooms, in cars. The two of you literally are the yin to each other's yang, as they say. So, all right, guys, we got a ton of stuff to cover with the two of them, but first I want to get started with you, sir, the longest reigning light heavyweight champion of all time. How was your entrance into professional wrestling?
My entrance into professional wrestling was my whole life. I watched it. I was, as they say, a mark, the biggest mark there was. But if you ask me, the true marks are the wrestlers. Because the fans, they say, you know, I'm smart enough, I'm just going to pay a couple of dollars here and watch these guys kill themselves in the rings. And the true marks are the ones that go, I don't care if I make money or not. I'm going in that ring and doing that. So I consider myself the marks, but I watched it my whole life and everything, and I used to hang out with your dad way before wrestling. And I'd go, man, wrestling's on. Let's go over and watch it. Come on. I ain't watching that stuff, man. I hate that stuff. I ain't watching. I'd go over and watch wrestling and then come back and we'd do whatever we're doing, build models or whatever, you know? And then, you know, as life goes on, you know, move away, and I moved away. He was married. I got married. And one one day I'm watching wrestle with my wife, and I go, babe, that looks like Barry, but a lot bigger. And all of a sudden it said Barry Hardy across the street. I went, that is Barry. So I had his mom's phone number. I called his mother. And she said, he's home. That's pre-recorded. I said, wait, give me his number. And she gave me his number. I called him. I lived maybe a half a mile away from him. Didn't even know it. I went over, and that night, I started learning hip tosses, lockups, and body slams on a half-inch of foam and concrete floor.
I was gonna say the old concrete floor.
The old concrete floor.
So the ring was actually getting cut down. Jam and Joe had built the ring, and the ring was getting cut down to fit into our basement. You know, because we had the house was a ranch, and the basement was on the side of the hill. So
yeah, there is a special Brian's Wrestling Collection 8x10 that features these two gentlemen right on there. You can see them standing in the ring in the basement at Winding Woods Way in Pasadena, Maryland.
Beast Makers.
Beast Makers.
Gym, that's right, brother.
So, when was your first call for World Wrestling Federation? The very first time that you were taken to television?
Well, your father took me up to Larry Sharp to do a tryout. And I used to do a thing that when you come in the hard way, I could go all the way across a 20-foot ring.
Death from above.
Yeah, you know, but I could really fly far. And we were at Larry Sharp's, and he come walking out of his office, and about that time I was wrestling your father, and he gave me a slingshot in. I went across and hit. Barry come over and started pounding on me. He said, "Oh, whoa, whoa, stop, man, right there." So I'm like, this is the first time I'm seeing another star beside your dad was the biggest star, you know, that I had ever seen to talk to, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh my God, there he is. And he goes, stop, what do you got? Can I see that again? And we're like, what? And he goes, that thing where you come inside. So we were setting it up, I was outside, Barry starts, he goes, stop, don't punch him. Just pull the damn rope and let him shoot in. I said, okay, here we go. He goes, you ready? I said, yep. Bam! I went, boom, hit, and stood up and leaned on the rope like this. I said, how's that? And he goes, you can go.
And the funny thing was about that move, he didn't even know what he was doing the first time I ever did it to him in the basement. I thought I killed him because it looked like his head drove right into the mat and all, you know, but he missed the mat just by a little, but it scared the crap out of me. I'm like, oh my God, I killed Duane.
He did. Oh my God, are you all right? Yeah, why? What's wrong? What did I do wrong? What did I do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, most guys coming over the top rope, they do the flip and land in the ring. He's shot, man. It was like, whoa, holy crap.
And that was your initial way to go to WWF.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. First opponent at WWF.
Oh my God, who was it, Barry? Was it? Yeah, it was Demolition.
Demolition for you as well.
That's right, because that was
Crush.
Crush's first match. It was Crush's first match, and he picked me up and threw me over the top rope.
And the list,
Back into the ring.
the list of greats that the two of you have wrestled from that point on.
Everybody.
Incredible. I mean, we could sit here and talk for hours and hours about the list of talent that these two have wrestled against. And I mean, you guys made those people look like larger than life superstars.
That, to be honest with you, is because Barry and I didn't get the head. You know what I mean? Oh, I can't lose to him. Dude, it's fake. Shh, don't tell nobody. You know what I mean? Come on, man. And we loved what we were doing. Look, why did we get into wrestling? We wanted to wrestle the British Bulldog. We wanted to wrestle Jake the Snake. We wanted to wrestle Ric Flair. We wanted to wrestle, you know,
the Legion of Doom,
the Dudleys, you name anybody, we wanted to wrestle them. And we did it.
He's the one. We're standing out there, and LOD, they had just come into the WWF, and Duane goes, man, I want to wrestle the Legion of Doom. I go, all right, I'll tell you what I do. We had the Bushwhackers the night before. I go, I'll take this whole match. You're taking that match, man. I got in. You can see me in the match. I did like one thing, and I tagged him right in. He took everything from Legion of Doom. Hey, I didn't know. They were just coming out of Japan, you know. It was like, whoa.
Stiff, right?
Hey, animal. Oh, no. They didn't touch it. Animal kept going, I want to power slam him. And I'm going, power slam me, and he's going, I want to power slam him. I said, power slam me. He goes, I want to power slam. You know, the power guy, I got to power, you know, because he was the power guy. He was big, wide, stocky son of a gun, you know. So, and then finally Barry goes, trust me, Animal. Power slam him. Well, I was so happy to wrestle him, man. You know, when he said power slam, brother, I come off, I hit, I jumped up, he was going like this, and I was about this high over top of his hands.
He barely even touched
He
it.
caught me on the way down, hit, bounced up into a stand, he goes, oh my God, what a power slam. So he goes, you get power slammed every time.
Now, years on TV. So what we're talking, first time, you were 87, right? 1987 for your first?
89.
89?
Yeah, early 89. Like 90.
Late
91.
90, 91, somewhere right there.
So the list of talent goes on and on. As you can see right here, we'll caption in on that later. We've got Marty Jannetty on the front cover of a WWF program with Bad Boy Barry Hardy here. We have Marty Jannetty on the front cover of a program with Duane Gill.
Oh, check it out.
Marty was awful popular.
I didn't even know that.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Then inside, we talked about this, and we'll get there in just a second. But before the cameras were even rolling today, this episode, or this magazine from February of 1999 featured the Survivor Series Deadly Game tournament inside of there. And let's talk about the birth of Gilberg and the Light Heavyweight Championship.
Hey man, that happened from, actually I was making fun of all the boys in MCW. I did the Undertaker, I did Stone Old Steve Boston, and then I did Gilberg. And how it actually happened was I was in the locker room talking to Paul Bear and Kane one night. And I was telling them all that stuff. We were kind of laughing. I said, yeah, and I did Gilberg. And Paul Bear went, huh? Oh, Duane Gill, you may have something there, boy. And I said, yeah, right, ha. So the rest of the night, every time I walked past them, they were going, Gilberg, Gilberg. And the next day it was TVs. So I went into catering, before TVs, and everybody was going, Gilberg, everybody else. So I jumped up on the table, and everybody laughed, and I thought that was it. Well, when I went home that week, I got a call, hey, what's this Gilberg thing? And all that. I said, oh, no. I don't want to do Gilberg. And they're like, why not? I said, I just won my title. I don't want to lose it. And they said, that's the beauty of it. You wrestle heavyweights. You're light heavyweight champion. And the count begins. 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, 0-4. So I was like, okay, let's do it.
Such a great gimmick.
They had no idea what I was going to do. They wanted me to wrestle Edge. And I said, no, give me Luna. And Luna was actually going, no. Yeah, I said, Luna, come on. You probably kicked my ass in real life. And she said, well, you want to do it? We'll do it. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And the best part of the match was when she got lost. And if I don't know how they cut it up and everything, but when we ran right into each other in the middle of the match. She went, I'm lost. And I went, ball shot. It's the only thing I could think of. And she dropped down, and when she did it, I grabbed her arm real good with my legs, and I started going, oh, as loud as I could. And I was holding her arm. She's going, let go of my arm, let go of my arm. Going, oh, I'm going to kill you. I swear, I'm going to kill you. Oh. And I fell over, and when I fell over, I still had her arm. I said, you're a dead man, you're a dead man. Yeah, it was hilarious.
And that was your biggest accolade when you reached the backstage after
It really was. That was my highest honor in wrestling. When I came through those curtains, there wasn't a McMahon, a writer, a camera guy, or a wrestler that wasn't standing there clapping and had tears running down her. All the girls had their makeup running, everything from laughing so hard. And when I turned around, Mwf Hall come through the curtain. God rest her soul. Bowed down, put her head on my feet like she was over in Japan. I grabbed her, man, I raised her up. I said, don't you ever do that to me again. She said, I'm trying to show you respect. I said, if anybody needs it, I do it to you. You just set my career on a totally different level. So we're doing that for me.
And that's huge. And to speak on respect, not only the amount of respect that the two of you have had over the years doing, extra work for these gentlemen that you made look like larger than life stars, but more importantly, the thing was you got the light heavyweight championship run, which was amazing. But then nowadays, I'm up there at WWE. I see you and I see the respect that the boys still have for the two of you. Yeah, I mean, you listen to people like Bruce Pritchard's podcast, and he constantly is putting the two of you over. You listen to people like Road Dogg and different people like that just talk about how hard you both worked. How did that make you feel?
It really good, really good. But like I said, I have it all to thank to your father, because I wouldn't have got the title or nothing if he had taught me how to wrestle. You know what I mean?
But
Come on.
But to that, if it wasn't for me and Duane teaming up and doing what we did, and I would do, you know, I thought I was doing some pretty cool moves and crazy moves before he came up, but then after he came up, it's like he would push me to do something else, because he would do something really crazy, and I'm like, well, I gotta keep up with that, and then I would do something crazy, and then, you know, the stupidest thing we ever did is one time we were like, go to the LOD, hey man, he goes, pick me up, animal, walk me over and throw me out of the ring, and I went, hey Hawk, pick me up in the center of the ring and throw me at the corner. So I was like a dart. And they had to go to Vince McMahon and get that okayed, which was really crazy. And he came back and they, okay. Well, first Vince was like, well, who is it? Hardy and Gill? Okay, you can do it. You know, but that was like, dude, we're just, and I mean, when you look at the Hardy Boys and everybody else now, they're way over the top, you know? But we walked away, you know, and we wrestled another night. The guys now are just a little bit over. I thank him for pushing me.
If you remember that night, brother, that happened, that was the night that I told you, hey, I'm gonna go over and talk to him, man, because I'm gonna change the beginning of the match. And you were like, what? And I said, yeah, I'm gonna go over and talk to him, man. You're like,
yeah,
you're
because
nuts.
this was probably.
And I went over and I said, hey guys, let's be for real. When you guys take those pads off, see my size, see your size. If I'm gonna fight you, I'm not gonna stand there and wait for you to drop them pads down and turn around and kick my ass. I said, I'm gonna attack you and do everything I can. And then that's when he said, yeah. And when we do it, we'll go to whip you off, you reverse it, and when we come back, they double press slam both of us is what happened. And they took Barry and did the Arn Anderson thing, stuck his head into the turnbuckle. And I told Animal, I said, walk over, look at the crowd, and just go. And throw me out of the ring. He goes, what? Said,
now you got an injury on that, right?
No, not that.
That fourth or fifth time. Yeah, that's when Hawk wanted to do it. And Hawk got nervous and dropped my legs first instead of dropping me flat.
Now what was that? Broken or separated shoulder, or broken leg?
No, it got
blew his knee out.
Oh, wow. Knee out, big time.
Wow,
big time.
But the cool thing about that here was, I helped him to the back, and as soon as Animal came through, man, he picked him up, and I mean, picked Duane up and carried him and sat him on one of the big boxes backstage. Get him some ice. Get him some ice.
Where's the doctor? Where's the doctor?
That's how cool them guys
were.
They
were the best, man. They were the best.
Respect.
Everybody up there was.
Well, see, we earned respect. We knew the old ways. Like we carried some Starr's bags. I'm not gonna lie. You know, hey, can you grab that bag? Yes, sir. Got it. You know, and they don't mean it wrong. They might be eating something or whatever, and they gotta get out of their car. Hey, can you grab a bag for me? Gotcha. You know, but today, hey, can you grab a bag for me? Are you nuts? You know what I mean?
It's very sad, but it's very true. And I tell people all the time, I still try to do that till this day, and it's just a respect thing. It's just one of those. I actually did that. We were at a convention. You and I were at a convention just last year, and I said, "Can I grab your bags for you?" And you said, "I got it, brother." And I said, "No, I'll get it for you." And it's an old tradition that is lost in the business. So.
Well, look who your father is. That's why you do it.
And that's the thing. Whether it's
you were talking about the young guys today showing us respect. When I went up and did the thing with Miz and Morrison, I was in the locker room. I was just telling your dad, man, it surprised the hell out of me. I was in the locker room, of course, you know, I'm being humble, real quiet and everything. And I'm getting dressed, and I look up, and there's Matt Riddle and Ricochet standing there talking. So I was like, they look like the nicest guys in here. I'll go up to them. So I walked up to them. I was like, hey guys, mind if I ask you a question? They're like, no. What do you need? I said, mind if I get a picture with you? And he went, oh God, I'm so glad you asked that. And I said, why? They go, man, we were just standing there going, I wonder if Gilberg would get a picture with us. And they're going, you got to remember, man, you're the reason we're here. Man, we loved you and all this. And as soon as I took a picture with them, here comes Omos, here comes AJ. Everybody's like, oh, cool, Gilbert's taking pictures. Oh, man.
So true.
And that was the neatest feeling that the young crowd today, actually, they all knew me. They oh, man, we grew up on you. And, you know, it was pretty neat.
It's a feeling of everything, that all the miles on the road, all the travel, everything wasn't a waste.
Yeah, but it sucked to realize how old I was.
Well, while that is true, everybody gets old. And guys, with that being said, we will be back after this commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Brian's Wrestling Collection Live, episode number 100 for YouTube. Standing by is Jason Knupp with special guest, Random Treasures.
Thank you very much, Brian. And again, Barry, Harley, Duane Gill, I could sit here and listen to these stories all day. They are fantastic. Not as fantastic as Mike. But I am very excited right now to be standing next to this vendor, this friend of mine. If you've watched the YouTube channel, you know that Random Treasures has been a part of my channel for the past year. I was introduced to these incredible custom LJN wrestling figures.
Those things are awesome, man. I'll tell you that.
They are incredible. They're the best I've ever seen. If you want to come, you're talking about the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, the best Road Warrior customs I've ever seen right here, made by this special person. XOX, Random Treasures, my friend Nat. How did all this happen? How did you realize that you were such a genius and could make these figures?
It was an accident.
Do tell.
That's how we all get into business.
Right? Well, you know how you wanted that line to continue? That's what we did. We just continued that line. And now we're just continuing it. Every couple of weeks trying to release a new one. Something that's never been made, you know, to sweeten up that collection.
Yeah, it's amazing. In fact, I would, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would like to take credit for the Samoan figures because I mentioned them on my channel, and then what do you know, they're creative. These were my idea, right? You're gonna give me that?
I'm gonna give you that.
All right, excellent. How can everybody find XOX? How can we find Random Treasures?
You can find us on Etsy, and you can also find us at our brick and mortar, which will be our new location as of Saturday, June 4th at 6202 Hazelwood Avenue in Rosedale.
Excellent. Get over here, guys, and check out some of the greatest custom figures I've ever seen. Brian, let's keep the show going. We'll send it back to you, brother.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Jason Knupp. I'll tell you what, Random Treasures is the place to be. I go there every time. Like I said off camera, I can't go in that store without spending $600-700 at a time because you want one thing and then you end up leaving with 30. That's just the way that it is sometimes. Please check out their new location. We will be sure to drop it here on the Brian's Wrestling Collection Live, episode 100. Check out their grand opening. I believe she said June the 4th, right? June the 4th. So in Rosedale, Maryland. It's going to be awesome.
I just love my action figures. Red clothes in Hasbro's, Galoops, Mexico, and Japan. I just love my action figures. I still crack the legs in my BCA.
With Bad Boy Barry Hardy and the longest reigning light heavyweight champion of all time, Duane Gilberg Gill. Give it up for the two of them. Guys, thank you so much for being here today. So we talked about, you were popping up everywhere. Not only were you guys popping up on programs and stuff, you're popping up as magazine posters back in the 90s. You're popping up as random trading cards. You want to talk about that trading card that we just found on eBay not too long ago?
That was really cool.
That was awesome, dude.
Brian gets a hold of me and he's like, "Hey Dad, check this thing out." And it's Razor, and he's got me in like chin hold, and I'm like, "What is that?" And he said, "Man, that's a sticker, and it's over in Europe." So I'm like, "Well, man, I wonder if this ever hit the U.S. or just is it a European thing?" So I went right on and I bought it. It was like a no-brainer. I had to have that. So, and here's just a little story real quick. I'll tell you. We wrestled way out in Moncton, and if anybody. Any of your listeners ever, we're a wrestler or are a wrestler, and you fly into Canada, when you drive from where you end up flying in to go to Moncton, it's like 6-hour drive. So we drive out, it's daylight. We get off at an exit. Here's the whole start of our night. We get off at an exit, we go down, we hit the gas station or whatever. We try to get back on the road, there's no entrance ramp. So it's me, Duane, and Razor. We all got together and rented a Cadillac because I was waiting on a credit card to come. You know, we had just gone on the road. So he's like, oh well, drives back up the exit ramp to get back on the road. So we get back on the road, we go, we do the thing. After we wrestled on matches that night, we were doing the executioner gimmick and Razor, I can't remember exactly who he was working. But then he starts ribbing us and riding around the parking lot, you know, just doing circles and stuff in the parking lot to us. And it's like, well, I didn't want nobody to see you get in the car and stuff, you know, so we're laughing. So Duane's like, hey man, I'll drive, okay? So I hop in the back, Duane's driving, Razor's in the passenger seat. We're kind of like chilling, you know, Razor's kind of one eye open, the other one, you know, shut. He's relaxing, it's dark out. I mean, Moncton is like trees on both sides, 2-lane highway. Duane's doing 100, you know. We're getting back to this motel a lot quicker than 6 hours. All of a sudden, there's like 3 moose, and I mean, they were standing like right on the black, like right up to the blacktop. Their hoofs were, but their heads were out over the road. And Razor woke up like that. He's like, man, slow down. And I mean, that would have been the end if we hit them because
right under the head.
It went under.
And it was like, what the hell was that?
Yeah. And that, I mean, that's the road that Adrian Adonis and all got taken out on, you know? It's just...
That's the truth. That's God's honest truth.
Yeah, that was a crazy night. Yeah, just a whole crazy night.
I can only imagine the stories that you have where you live to tell the tale over and over again. I mean, how many days on the road would you guys say you were spending them on?
Well, for a while there was like 25.
Yeah, I would just stay at his house because we'd fly back in and it would be like a 2-day break. I'm like, I'm not going home because by the time I fly home, I get a couple hours and I got to get back on a plane. And I would always come here and we'd fly out of BWI. Yeah, so we were basically, you know, him and Lil, we were all living together there. I was their adopted kid. So
that is so cool. I mean, just like I said, another piece of cool merchandise for you is the Undertaker poster. Now that's just started surfacing over the last couple of years. I mean, it came out in '93 or '94, and we're finding it everywhere on eBay now. It's going for quite a bit of money, which is even cooler.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Really?
Well, the first
I don't
one.
know about this. I wondered if you got an Undertaker poster.
Yeah, it was.
That's awesome, brother.
Yeah, I mean, the choke slam, and he just held on to me, and they snapped a picture.
Yep.
But it's like
I wrestled him 200 times. He gets the poster.
Well, you have a great poster with Davey Boy Smith
and LOD.
And LOD. So that's what I'm saying. The amount of stuff that you guys have had released of you over the years, and like even for you to say earlier today, I didn't know that this existed, or you got this, or.
Well, like Bobby said, man, the boys used to get on us 3 because they'd be like, what the hell, man? We're the stars and you guys are getting way more TV time than us. You're on every single week. Because Barry and I, if it wasn't, you know, Duane Gill or Barry Hardy or Duane Gill and Barry Hardy, it was the Executioners, you know what I mean? So we had everything. We did everything we could to work, you know?
Well, the thing that's kind of funny, and here's a little weak plug for Peacock, if you have the WWE version of the network on Peacock, is that a lot of these old episodes of Superstars and stuff, I don't think that the people that were editing the show realized they would put you guys on twice in one episode. You would start at the beginning of the show, you might be the Executioner, or you might be this or that, and then later on in the episode, you're wrestling as yourself.
There was one time, if you remember, when you used to bring the trailer in the back, you know, to do the production and all that. Vince was in there, and I wrestled 4 times in the first hour. You remember? Yeah. Vince come out of the trailer when I come back from my thing. He said, "You get your tights off. You're not wrestling anymore. And you, this is not the damn Duane Gill hour."
That's great. And aside from your time as Barry Hardy and Duane Gill or Gilberg, we also have known that you were the Executioners. So how did that come to be? Is there a backstory with the Lords of Darkness and transition to the Executioners?
No, we were just trying to find another way to wrestle.
Yeah. Well, we gave like our promo tape from the Lords of Darkness to Chief J. Strong. Or no, I'm sorry, Terry. Terry Garvin. And, we were trying to get a job full time. So, he watched it and everything, and then one day, hey man, you guys got them suits and all, but you can't wear the makeup, and we're like, oh, okay. So, I ordered the mask from a lady, and I could still remember her name, like, really crazy, but she used to make all the masks for a lot of wrestlers. Her name was Betty Briley, and I believe she was out of Tennessee. So I got the mask and I gave them to Duane, and the next thing I know, man, they're all airbrushed up like skulls. He's like, wait till you see these, man. So he pulls them out. I'm like, oh my God, that is awesome. So we started wearing the skull mask, and they loved it up there. But then all of a sudden, Papa Shango comes, and they're like, we got Shango coming in, man, and he's gonna do a thing, and he's gonna be painted up like a skull, so you guys gotta go to a black mask. And we were bummed because we thought, that's our way in, but it still worked out.
The thing that's crazy to me is in 1993, there was a match that took place, and we will talk about that in just one second. But leading up to that, the year was 2009, and I'm on the road with the two of you. And I won't lie, and I won't be fake about it. I'm going to be completely honest, because that's what we're going to do on Brian's Wrestling Collection. Listening to these two talk about this story, some of the stories that they talk about, you just go, is this, like, what type of world are we living in? Like, it seems like half of the stuff that these guys were saying was so far-fetched and out there, only to find out years later that everything that they said was absolutely true. And I'm going, damn, what type of business is this? Literally. One of those stories being in 1993, these two decided to go out to the ring and wrestle under the gimmick, the Toxic Turtles. However, none of this ever came to light until years later when WWE.com covered an interview with Gilberg, and shortly after, WWE had released an unreleased match of the Toxic Turtles on their DVD, and I thought to myself, that trip to Allentown wasn't a lie. Holy hell. Tell me about the Toxic Turtles and how that came.
We did Toxic Turtles, just having fun on the independents. But we took the outfits to WWF. I'm talking 6-7 months.
Yep.
And we worked there a lot. So
In a
we
bag.
carried these big bags for 7 months, man. Everywhere
Never
we
broke
went.
them out.
Never broke them out. So one day Barry's going out to go do a match. And I said, Barry, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
He said, what? I
Like,
said,
doing it.
I'm getting dressed. I'm getting dressed. I'm getting in the outfit, and I'm going out there, and I'm letting them know. He goes, all right. So I got in the whole thing and everything. So I go out in the locker room. I sneak out, and then all the boys are out there. So I go, heck with it. Dang, I start dancing around. I'm spinning around. I spin around like, break dancing. I stop. I'm like this. And when I do it, I go, uh-oh. There's a pair of shoes right in front of me. And I knew it. And I went, oh, no. And I looked up, and there's Vince, and he's laughing, and I jumped up. And he goes, who in the hell is in there? And I took the mask off, I guess, like embarrassed. He goes, I should have known. He said, you got another one? I said, yes, sir, I do. He said, all right, you're wrestling the Turtles next match. And I'm like, Mr. McMahon, we can't. He goes, why? I said, Barry's in the ring. He goes, I suggest he dress quick.
I had like Renee Goulet, Tony Gurria, everybody, man, trying to Duane. Everybody's trying to put the suit on me and
He
stuff.
just wrestled.
I'm all sweaty.
A suit or leotards or whatever, trying to put them on when you're wet. It ain't happening, man. We basically were picking him up like this, trying to just jerk him down into this suit.
The things were just so tight.
And after walking to the ring, I'm going, okay, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this.
Yeah, there was
on the
nothing
fly.
called. Everything. We told the guys, I told them, I said, I'm going to have you slam me, and when you do, I go, Duane's going to run in and flip me over.
I said, you act like a turtle, man. You can't get up.
You kicking my feet. That's how that came about.
And to me, it's just crazy because, like I said, hearing that story when I was 19 years old, it was too much for my brain to process. I was like, this just sounds so far-fetched. This just sounds like Vince would never let this shit happen, ever. And then all of a sudden, it pops up on WWE.com in your interview, and then it pops up shortly after on an unreleased DVD, and I just went, this is insane to me. Like, it's giving me chills right now as we speak.
Copyright killed us,
Blew my mind.
We look too much like, the Ninja
And how popular were they at that time?
Jeez, they were.
Well, the indies, they were
the
great.
thing.
But that night, they put us on so late because it was
Yeah.
a TV taping, you know?
And those used to go for hours.
Oh, yeah. And that's what it was. I mean, it was like 11:30 when they put us out there. And I see people, like, on the internet, and they're, like, tearing it down. It's like, dude, people had already sat through 4.5 hours of wrestling. Do you really think they wanted to see two turtles come out and wrestle guys that are just, you know?
And that's so true. And it's not even just that. I mean, you could have a Ring of Honor here in town, and they could do a 4-hour taping, and you could have two of the best putting on a technical, showcase. And they're just burned out. Like they're done. They can only handle so much. So I don't know how you guys used to do 4, 5, 6 hours of TV. And I've heard the stories, and I know, you're going back out dressed up as this, or you're going back out to.
I can remember
props.
like it being like almost after midnight a few times. You know, it was crazy. You know, but some people stayed, but a lot of people left. It was just, and you didn't want to be in that 4th hour, man. Let me tell you. And I was a lot, and it was like, oh my God.
Yeah, but no matter what, we were always the first ones there and the last ones to leave.
Yeah, that's all.
Always.
Stay dressed to the end.
And you guys got to work on the very first episode of Monday Night Raw.
Yeah,
ever.
we worked on the first year, I'll say the first 2 years every week.
Yeah,
every week.
They pulled us, and well, actually, that was the start of our going on to the road full time. They were like, "Hey, man, can you guys be in Jersey?" You know, and it's going to be like a 4-day run. And the 4th day, we're going live, and we're like, "Huh? Yeah, man, Monday Night Raw is going live." Okay, well, we're bringing the Steiners back from Japan.
That was a 10-day, remember? And we did 2 double shots, and they broke my shoulder and cracked my sternum the first match. And we did the rest of the 10 days and the TV tape.
Rick and Scotty injured you?
Ask them.
Rick, he wasn't letting go.
A bag of ice over my shoulder.
Yeah, he was, when he would do that bulldog off the top rope. I mean, I watched him. Duane, the first night's like, "Oh my God, man, it killed me." And I'm like, I'm gonna watch, you know.
I got
and he did it again,
right now.
you know, and he didn't let him go. And I went up to Rick and I'm like, "Dude, you gotta let him go." I go, "You're freaking crushing him." I said, "You know, I'm messing him up, you know." He's traveling with ice on. So, but yeah, he let him go after that, which was cool. He listened to me, you know. But I mean, it's kind of hard to go up to the Steiners and go, "Hey, man, you're not doing that move right," you know.
Well, guys, I would say when I look at the two of you, like I said, you guys are your brothers. Really.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely.
You don't have to be blood to be family, and you guys have proved over the years that you two are definitely your tag team champions in my book till the end of time. So
we knew what each other was thinking all the time. And that came from being in my basement every night. I used to get on him, man. He said he had just had a new baby, you know, little Duane, and I'm like, "You need to get over here." I was Larry Sharp, you know what I mean? Larry, that's how he instilled it into me. And God bless Charlie Fulton and Larry Sharp. May they rest in peace. But if it wasn't for Charlie Fulton, I would have never, ever became the wrestler that I was. You know, and I kept an open mind. And Larry told me right from the beginning, keep your mouth shut and your ears open. He goes, and you know, you'll get along good in this business. And I lived by that, and I passed that through him. Jam and Joe, Kerry Davis, anybody that came through my
The only problem with me was I kept my ears open and my mouth open.
Yeah, sometimes you can shut his mouth. But that's a good
I got us in a lot of trouble.
That's the golden rule in pro wrestling. Keep your eyes and your ears open and your mouth shut. And he just said he kept his mouth open.
Hey, what's up? How you doing? Hey, what's up? How you doing?
Well, that's great. I thank the both of you for being here today. It was so important to me to have you both on the first live episode.
Pleasure, man.
Thank you for having us.
It's our pleasure.
That was awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Because here's the whole thing, man. You got me to do my first podcast because I have had all kind of people contact me and I turn them down. I do not do podcasts. And the only reason I don't is because maybe one day I'd like to do a DVD and have these kind of stories on it. But for my son, I did this podcast.
Brother, how many podcasts do you hear me on? Every one of them went very hard.
Absolutely.
And I tell him, I'm sorry, brother, he just don't do them.
Yep.
And every one of them want us together.
this the first one?
Just such cool memories with the two of them. I mean, if you were a lifelong wrestling fan like I am, you saw these guys on TV every single week. I've had the pleasure to be tag team champions with you inside of this building right here, which is really cool. I have had the pleasure to be your tag team partner and your opponent. I've taken the spear and the jackhammer. So I am so grateful to both of you. I thank you, you both, and thank you for being a part of Brian's Wrestling Collection Live, episode 100, and we will be right back after this message.
Hey, you! Yeah, I'm talking to you. Did you miss Brian's Wrestling Collection Live? And I'm not talking about on YouTube. I'm talking about live and in living color. Did you miss it? If you missed it, now's your opportunity to get a cool merch bundle package. I'm going to show you the picture right now. To commemorate 100 episodes of Brian's Wrestling Collection, that merchandise bundle package is going to be $100 shipped inside of the United States. It's an additional shipping cost for outside of the US, but the crazy thing is we're only selling a dozen of these packages, so you better grab them quick, because if you don't, somebody else will. $100 shipped. All you got to do right now is DM Brian's Wrestling Collection on Facebook or Instagram and order yours today. We are PayPal ready.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming out to Brian's Wrestling Collection Live. I actually want to personally thank each and everybody here. Joel Gertner, thank you for coming out. XOX Customs, thank you for coming out. The many roads we've traveled, thank you for being here. Playboy Bobby Starr, Barry Hardy, Duane Gill, thank you for being here. Second Chance Toys, thank you for being here. And thank you, Brian, for inviting me and making me feel a little bit more important than I really am. And in fact, why don't you close out this show the best way you know how? Ladies and gentlemen, one last time for Brian Hardy.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out. This is the song that you hear so many times on every single episode. Thank you for being a part of episode 100. And Jason Knupp, we greatly appreciate you too. Thanks to all the vendors. Thank you to everybody for watching live on YouTube. And here we go.
Wrestler and musician traveling the world for good. Somebody's made of plastic and some other things I love. Won't you come along with me? There's no time for rejection. Hold on tight, touch the line. It's Brian's Wrestling Collection. Me. Thank you guys so much.